I'm going to read a bit more of Frank Cottral Boyce's Unforgotten Coat. When I left it last time, she was just about to knock on the flat door and she thought the Xanadu was going to be in there. Let's see if she finds it. I rang the bell again. Silence. A tense, holding your breath kind of silence. Again. Nothing. A deep, rasping growl behind me made me jump. For some reason I was thinking of their demon, but it was the lift. The doors opened and Mum stepped out. I said, "I thought you were waiting in the car." "Of course I'm not waiting in the car. As if I'm going to leave my own daughter to her fate so I can look after the car." "Did you smell that lift?" "Dear me." "Have you rung the doorbell?" "Yeah." "Didn't they answer?" "Not yet." "So they're not in. Let's get back to the car." "Shh. Listen." We could hear hushed voices arguing and a water tap running. "So they're in, but they don't want to answer the door. They're probably having their dinner. Leave it till tomorrow." She'd already pressed the button for the lift to come back and I said, "Maybe the bell's broken," and I hammered on the door. The voices stopped. The tap stopped. I hammered again. Mum grabbed my hand. "Don't do that," she hissed. "It's rude." But there were footsteps in the hallway now and someone pulled the door open. A woman. She wasn't wearing the traditional jewelled Mongolian headdress. She wasn't wrapped in silk. She was not happy to see me. She didn't see me at all to start with. She looked at Mum. Mum said, "I'm Julie's mother, a friend of Chingis. This is his coat." The woman didn't answer. She just stared at Mum and then at me, as if she was trying to work out the answer to a puzzle. I knew she wasn't going to ask us to come in. She stood and watched me as I struggled out of the coat. I got a glimpse of the flat, the long empty corridor, the bare light bulb at the far end, near the door, a line of bags and suitcases bulging and fastened as if the family were about to leave. I tried to hand back the coat, but she didn't take it. Instead, she covered her eyes with her hands and I realised she was crying. I stood there holding the coat while she held her face. Then a door opened at the far end of the corridor and suddenly Chingis was striding towards me. He didn't say anything. He didn't look at me. He just took the coat, threw it over his shoulder with one hand, took hold of his mother's elbow with the other. He steered her back into the flat and slammed the door in my face. I thought Mum would go on and on about how rude they were, or how she was sure the car had been stolen, but she didn't say a word all the way down in the lift and all the way home in the car. It was only when we were safely parked in William Morris Road that she said, "Well, what was all that about?" I knew exactly what it was all about. I didn't know the details or the reasons, but I knew that it was about fear. I didn't know why, but I knew that everyone in that house was afraid. The next day, Chingis came to school in his coat again and didn't take it off, even when it was time to go to class. When I said, "Hey, it's not home closed anymore," he didn't even look at me. When he sat down, Mrs. Spenlove also said, "Chingis, it's not home closed anymore." "Yeah, and these aren't my own clothes, are they?" said Chingis. "They're my granddad, see what I'm saying?" He was doing his pretending to not understand thing again, but it wasn't really that convincing now he had a Scouse accent. Mrs. Spenlove said, "Just step outside, go to the cloakroom and hang it up." Chingis slouched out of the room. Mrs. Spenlove rolled her eyes and Shocky said something like, "What do you expect? He's named after Genghis Khan." I said, "What do you know about Genghis Khan then?" "Yes," said Mrs. Spenlove. "What do you know about Genghis Khan?" He was supposed to say nothing. But in fact, he stood up and delivered this whole lecture. "Genghis Khan was born in 1100 and something. He had red hair. When he grew up, he conquered. And what for? All he was interested in was horses. He just went round conquering countries and killing loads of people so he could have more horses. Like he'd capture a city and he'd say, 'What do you want to do with it?' And he'd be like, 'I know, let's knock it down and we'll have a bit more room for our horses.' Or someone would come to him who'd discovered a new country and they'd be like, the people there have wings and they can read minds and they've got a city that floats in the air or something. And he'd be like, have they got any horses? No, can't be bothered with them. I said, but they were nomads. Horses were really important. They needed horses to survive and for status. People nowadays, they use cars to show their status. So if Genghis was alive today, said Shocky, it would be cars instead of horses. He'd kill everyone so he could grab the cars and then he'd tarmac the whole of Europe so he could drive wherever he wanted. It was hard to believe. I was actually having a kind of conversation with Shocky, let alone one about the history of the Mongol Empire. Afterwards, Mimi put it like this. He obviously fancies you, otherwise why would he look up all that stuff about horses or whatever? Mrs. Spenlove broke into the great Mongolian history debate to ask, where actually is Genghis? He was supposed to go and hang up his coat. Duncan, go and get him. So Duncan went to get him. But he'd already gone. His coat was hanging up in the cloakroom, but there was no sign of him. Mrs. Spenlove said we should just concentrate on the lesson and let him sulk if he wanted to. He's probably gone to kill someone and then have a drink out of its skull. That's what the original Genghis did, and they're still naming their kids after him. Imagine that! Imagine if Germans called their kids Adolf, and then imagine if people followed those kids home every night and taught them how to play football and swap coats with them and everything. Shocky was bright red by the time he'd finished. I said, at least they're polite enough to talk to people and not just ignore someone for an entire year. Excuse me, said Mrs. Spenlove. Could you two old married people take your domestic disputes somewhere else? Married? What was she on about? By lunchtime, there was no sign of Genghis. And when I looked on the blue playground, there was no sign of Nergai either. No one else seemed that worried. Kids did sag off from our school quite a bit. And anyway, Genghis seemed like he could handle himself. Only I had seen those faces at the door the night before. I knew about the fear that was in their house. So I went through the pockets of the coat. I was trying to help. I found 2 plastic chairs and a table, like from a doll's house. I seemed to know them from somewhere, but I couldn't think where. There was also a rolled up notebook with all his Polaroids stuck inside, like top trumps. I flicked through the Polaroids. I came across the one of the oasis in the Gobi Desert. The one with the strange flower-like trees. Under the trees was a table and 2 chairs. The same chairs and table I was holding in my hand. I looked at the photograph again. They weren't flower-like trees at all. They were just flowers. And I knew which flowers. I'll show you the picture. I took the pictures, the notebook, and the doll's furniture out to the clump of trees where the lost tribe of Year 5 lived. There were long, skinny flowers growing between the trees. I put the doll's furniture in between them, then crouched down and squinted. It took me about 2 minutes to find a perfect match to the picture. I swear, I even found the tiny imprints of the table legs in the soil. The magical Mongolian oasis was behind the bins in our schoolyard. The ovu with the horse's skull, when I looked again, was the pile of rubble in the car park of Robert's Tower. What other wonders of the world were actually in Bootle? There was also a Polaroid of 2 railway lines striking out across a flat prairie. Probably this was the railway line they had followed by foot on the epic journey across the steppe and along the Silk Road when they were trying to escape from their terrible demon. Either that, or it was the Mersey Rail to Southport, which runs behind our school. I rolled up the notebook, put it back in the coat pocket, and sneaked out through the blue playground. It was the easiest way out. If anyone stopped you, you could say you were going after a stray football. I walked up to the station, stood on the platform and peered down the track. It looked completely different from the photo. It was all houses and flyovers, except that the rails were identical, so I started to follow them.